Hospital porters' pride and dignity stop the New World Order. Welcome to Herpanwo TV. I've just finished work and I'm off on another little journey, just a short one, and it's going to be a very sad journey. Well, I've just come across this at a bus shelter. HS2 is a poo by someone called Tina. Yep, I couldn't say it better myself. I've come to this lovely little spot just outside Oxford, and that's weird. Look. Someone's put an Illuminati pyramid on this thing. Now that thing, it looks a bit like Doctor Who's TARDIS. I don't know, I've seen them all over the place, but only in Oxford or around Oxford. I don't know why that is, and I don't know what they are. If anyone knows, just let me know. Yeah, I've come here to this lovely little spot here, just outside Oxford. Bit of countryside here, you can see. Here, children playing nearby. It's got a lovely atmosphere here, the weather's not too bad. I come here because I like enjoying the countryside. I think the British countryside is a wonderful thing, and I love it. And it's under threat. It's under threat from many quarters. In this particular film, I'm going to talk about one of those threats in particular. It's got a catchy little name, little two letters and a number, HS2, because it's been announced in the news that serious construction work on HS2 has begun. That's caused me great sadness. As you know, I did a Herpanwo Voice blog article about this. HS2 is the second high-speed rail link in Britain, and there's the first one, of course, is it's the railway line, the high-speed link between London and the Channel Tunnel, which goes all the way to France, to Paris, and into Belgium, to Brussels. High-speed rail is pretty much all over the place now. I mean, like Japan, of course, has its Shinkansen, its bullet trains. There's France with its TGV. China's got several generations of high-speed rail now, and now Britain's having ours. This is a line. It's very straight, because the trains go very fast. They go at about 250 miles an hour, which is about twice the speed of a express train on normal tracks. It's very fast, and the scale of this construction is on par with a large motorway. Look, there's a lovely field there. It's very Slaxer-esque, this, isn't it? This particular video. It's very like, you can just imagine old Slaxer. In the days when he used to go out in the countryside rather than the park. So HS2 is begun, and there's going to be basically a big straight line ripped through the green heart of England. As I said, the construction is on the scale of a large motorway. Because the trains are very fast, they're not manoeuvrable. They're not as manoeuvrable as normal trains. The lines have to be very straight. They just plough through all kinds of they plough through the country. I mean, some of it is it's sort of on brownfield, like old abandoned railway lines and things, but a lot of it is just tearing straight through ancient villages and ancient woodland. It's terrible. It's horrible. And it's very expensive. It's very expensive indeed. The original budget, when it was first proposed and when the deal was agreed to begin construction, they said it's going to cost around about 56 billion. And that's a lot. That's a lot of money if you think about it. The average main teaching hospital, like John Radcliffe in Oxford, where I served as a porter for 23 years. Have I mentioned that before? I think I have, yeah. That costs around about 2 billion. HS2 was budgeted at 56 billion. That includes all the links, because it's going to carry on from Birmingham north into Yorkshire and possibly as far as Scotland. But this 56 billion has already doubled. This budget estimate has already doubled. It's over 100 billion now. 1/10 of a trillion. It's a massive, expanding, vacuum-sucking whirlpool of funds, and it's no doubt that hugely inflated budget is going to increase. God knows how much it'll cost if and when it's finally completed. At the moment, the current inventory says that 200 homes are going to be destroyed. They're just going to be demolished, and across the country between London and Birmingham. And the people are just being told, sorry, we're taking over your land, because you don't have the same land rights, and we're going to put this railway through it, and sure, we'll buy your house, but the actual, it's not really buying when you sort of like point a gun at someone's head effectively and say, we're building over this, we'll buy your house, we'll give you like the market value for it. But of course, a lot of people, the market value estimates are quite low compared to a lot of other estimates for market, and that doesn't include the fact that people might love their homes, they might not want to leave them. These are often rural areas where people have ancient houses that were built long ago. Oh, it's lovely. We're in this lovely woods now. I was actually going to take you today to my original plan was to go to the actual location where the HS2 was going to run, because it's not far from Oxford, actually, just outside Bicester, and Oxfordshire is actually the worst affected county by this. So yeah, and for those who don't, for those who are not actually losing their homes because the railway doesn't plough directly over the top of them, they're going to keep their homes, but the atmosphere of their location, especially if it's like a small village, is going to be transformed. There's going to be 2 railway lines running straight through it, sometimes on a built-up embankment, sometimes cut into a cutting through excavation and things like that. And every so often, very fast trains are going to shoot past their house, which is going to be very noisy. You imagine if it's going 250 miles an hour, you can just imagine the kind of engine it's going to need and how much noise that's going to create. It's funny, it's not unlike the Roman roads. Don't worry, I'll go on to more detail about that in a minute, but it's not unlike the Roman roads. I always said that, Roman roads are famous for being very straight. And of course we said, that awful, it's because basically the native British people under the Roman Empire, no one had any property rights, so the Romans could build roads wherever they wanted. They could build them over your land, over your farm, over your garden, over your house, whatever they liked. And we're back in those ancient days now, where people have no rights because the government owns everything. Who won the Cold War, eh? And of course, you're going to have you're going to have these old villages, oldie worldy villages with thatched cottages and old ladies riding around on bikes and a little cute village shop and sheep going meh in the fields and birds singing, and everyone goes to church and the church bells ring every Sunday. You know the kind of place I mean. Midsummer Murders, think of that without the murders. And then it's going to be devastated. These communities are going to be transformed by this horrible, firstly the building work, the construction is like moving out, it's going to be tearing across it's going to be inching slowly across the country, chewing up everything in its wake like some kind of evil caterpillar. And then the trains themselves, 250 miles an hour, high-speed trains, zipping past, huge embankments looming over the village, or cuttings, all the electric wires and things that go with it. That's what these ancient villages are going to look like. These ancient villages that go back to the Doomsday Book. And of course, it's also a form of cultural imperialism, because as I've explained before, I explained this when I went to Devon. You know, Mahatma Gandhi made an interesting comment once. He said that villages are the fortress of people's traditions, their cultures, everything. That everything centres around the village in India, and it's the same in Britain. These little villages, like that place I showed you. I remember North Zeal, it was called, a lovely little, cute, quaint little village in the heart of Devon. Do you remember that? Do you remember that video I made? I don't know if I'll put a link in the description box. It's one of the sky watching videos. Sky watching in Devon videos. I made 2 of them. These places are the keep of the fortress when it comes to indigenous traditions and cultures. Where the cities transform, the cities change, the cities become completely and utterly ruined in terms of architecture, in terms of their communities, in terms of like cultural diversity and things like that. I'm getting controversial now, but it's true. Villages maintain that indigenous purity, and Gandhi understood this. Funny enough, it's when India became independent in 1947, just before Gandhi was shot, and then there was the Indian Civil War. He was Pandit Nehru, his friend and collaborator, who actually became the first Prime Minister. Gandhi refused to take any official political office. And he tried to create like a state based on Western models. But Gandhi advised him to not to do that, to create a society founded on India's tradition. As Michael Wood, the historian, very poignantly puts it, for Gandhi, a country's legacy was simply itself. India's legacy was simply itself. And of course, so these villages, these keeps of the fortress are doomed if this goes ahead. And it's not too late to stop it. I want to make that clear. It feels like it is, though, sometimes, you know. Just look at this ancient woodland, this beautiful woods here, these woods. Some of these trees are so old. There's some trees standing today that first grew in the pre-Illuminati world, before the Roman invasion and conquest, when pre-Illuminati people walked freely amongst these branches, visiting the sacred groves, being blessed by the Druids. Rather like in the video, that William Orbit's Adagio for Strings video, these trees are just there, and the world, everything changes and moves around it. They look upon the modern world when they once looked upon the feet of the pre-Illuminati Britons, and the pre-Illuminati children climbed in their young branches. Of course, the arrival of the Illuminati in Britain, as it is all over the world, was a catastrophe. It was apocalyptic. It was what Apachacuti was the word. Apachacuti was the word. Apachacuti, that was it. Apachacuti was the word used by the Aztecs and the Incas when Cortez and Pizarro and their conquistadors arrived on the shores of the Americas. It was Apachacuti means the world turned upside down. And the world was turned upside down for these people. But you know what? With everything, with the 21st century world roaring around us, HS2s and things like that, it's all the more poignant, isn't it? Those people, the ancient pre-Illuminati people, watched the world being turned upside down as the Caesar soldiers marched in long tight columns, putting up square buildings and everything in straight lines. Where for the Celtic people everything was in curves, there were no straight lines. But for them, the world turned upside down. But for us, the only world we do know is upside down. Can we put it back upright? Can we turn it the right side up? If we can we though? So let's have a look at some of the arguments made by people who support HS2 and think it's a good thing. The first thing is they say shorter journeys. Well, that's technically true. That's just... This is the weird thing, right? I mean, people say, oh, it'll make getting to London to Birmingham would be so much quicker. So much quicker. Do you know, how would these people cope if they used to live in the days of stagecoaches and horse riding? You know, you can get between London and Birmingham, current estimated time on the normal network, 1 hour 24 minutes. 1 hour 24 minutes. So you can watch a feature film in that time. Oh, and HS2 is going to cut that time down to an estimate of 56 minutes. Less than half an hour is the time it's going to save. And what a price we're paying for that half hour, that extra half hour of time. Yeah. Okay, so that's one of the arguments. Right, better transport links. Yeah, this is another one. Now, the actual railway network we have today was pretty much designed by Victorians in the 19th century. And it is a good point, actually. Maybe it does need modernising. Maybe some trains do need to be rerouted. But an entire massive railway built across the land, tearing down ancient woodlands, knocking down ancient villages, I mean, ruining the atmosphere of rural England. It's a high price to pay for that half hour, isn't it? It's a really high price to pay. Third, it will create jobs. Well, firstly, it will create jobs in the building trade. Obviously, the construction work will provide jobs. But there's two, and of course the actual HS2 itself may provide jobs. But the thing is, there's two arguments against that. Firstly, when the construction's over, those jobs will go. Now, if you can say, okay, well, I'll get a job. I'll leave the construction industry, I'll get a job in the HS2 network. Well, what jobs will be available? We're talking, it's a 20-year agenda, right? I mean, it's 8 years. The current stretch they've just started is 8 years. 20 years to complete the entire network, which I think goes right up to, I think, Yorkshire, or even up to Scotland. I think some people are saying they want to build a link up to Glasgow and Edinburgh. Well, firstly, there'll be a lot of automation. It's possible the trains themselves will be driverless. So all you train spotters out there who dream of the days when you shovel coals into fireboxes and things like that, and then go beep beep and things like that on the whistle, okay? The chances are you will not get to drive those trains. The closest you'll get to it is there'll be a camera on the front. You'll be sitting in some office in London, watching it go. You know, you may have a remote driver who'll probably be in charge of several trains at once. So the trains may well be driverless. There'll be automated turnstiles, of course. We're already seeing that in the modern railway network. I don't know if you've seen my turnstiles video. I want to talk about how the turnstile system on railways has destroyed the romance of rail travel. You can't get these romantic scenes like you get in Casablanca and things like that, where Rick and Elsa waving to each other. Well, that was a plane, wasn't it? Sorry. Or maybe another film then, where somebody's waving and there's a train whistle going, "Oh, I love you, darling," and someone's on the train going, "I love you." Okay, the turnstiles have ruined that, because you can't even enter the platform area of the station unless you've got a ticket to travel. Just imagine, you know, Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman leaning to kiss each other over the contactless turnstile. Oh no, it's not really Hollywood, is it? So there'll be a lot of automation, probably automated ticket offices, automated shops in the duty-free area, automated everything. And look, even if it does, there's another point, right? There's a moral question. I mean, even if supposing it created thousands of jobs. Right, yeah, well, you know, guess what? The Gulag Archipelago created lots and lots of jobs for unemployed Russians. Yeah, you know, you can go and be a guard, or be a whip and get a whip and be a torturer or something in a gulag. Yeah, man, great career for a young Russian, isn't it? You know, there are moral considerations as well as economic and financial ones and social ones when it comes to employment. You know, I mean, all right, it creates jobs. Are those jobs worthy? Are they ethical jobs? And that's something that I think a lot of people don't forget. I mean, I suppose in this nihilistic, pseudo-psychopathic NPC age, it's not really considered very sensible to even ask questions like that. It's seen as rather quaint and naive and old-fashioned, even to consider things like this. But I do! What's the third one? Oh yeah, so that's actually... There's only one more. There's only four on the list actually in the BBC for why people support HS2, and the fourth reason is it's better for the environment. Really, ripping down oak trees that stood over the pre-Illuminati people is good for the ripping down ancient oak trees, hardwood forests, beautiful old buildings, churches. Thatched cottages. That's good for the environment, is it? And all the birds nesting in the trees, things like that. God knows what it'll do to things like the water table and things like that. Oh. But they say, oh no, but it will reduce carbon footprints because the trains will be electric and they'll be run on renewable resources. Oh, you know what I think about bloody carbon footprints and things like that. You know what a load of bollocks I think it is. More on the long-term environmental impact. Ooh, well, they also say it will help. They're all like, yeah, oh great, it'll be great transport. It'll be great because it can be used for freight as well as passengers. So it'll be a great environmentally friendly way of moving freight around at very high speeds across the country. Excuse me, but no one even knows how much it's going to cost yet. I mean, you see, there are already many haulage companies that actually do not use the trains, the existing railway network, because of the costs, because of the massive costs. It's cheaper just to shove it all on the back of a lorry. So now HS2 is going to be more expensive than your average railway. It's going to be a lot more expensive. Yeah, and then I made some notes here. I make no mistakes about that. Noise pollution. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah. It's likely to be a lot more expensive to ride on HS2 than it is on the normal railway network. Certainly in the early days when they're paying off, because they're probably going to have to borrow a massive amount of money. God knows how much. There's going to be a lot of borrowing involved in completing it. If it's already costing them over 100 billion, and they haven't even only just started laying the first sleepers and rails, there's going to be a huge amount of debt. So certainly in the early days of HS2, it's going to be very expensive, and it'll probably continue to be expensive. It's going to be a rich man's plaything, basically. It's going to be like Concorde. The Concorde airline, the supersonic airliner, was going to change the world when it first came out in the early 70s. You know, every airline, every airport was going to be filled with Concordes. It was going to be like a bloody man in high castle. What happened? Well, only 2 airlines ever flew Concordes, used Concordes, and they eventually were cancelled. And a lot of it was economic. I mean, there was other reasons as well for Concorde, but travelling by Concorde was far more expensive than travelling by a normal airliner. And this is going to be the same. It's going to be a rich man's plaything. And it could even get to the point where if it does collapse financially, and let's face it, I mean, there's always financial Armageddon on the horizon. I mean, if it's cancelled, obviously there's always a possibility it could be cancelled. But if it's cancelled once the thing's built, it'll be too late. The damn thing will be built. Unless you dig it up again, like in my Roswell books, you know, they dig up these things. The track has started being laid. I mean, work on the terminuses is quite well advanced in Birmingham and London. They're working on these big terminuses, and I joked you because, of course, it was postponed for a few months. Do you remember? There was actually a postponement of works while there was a review of the whole project. Boris Johnson was presiding over that with the Transport Secretary. And I thought, good, he's going to pull the plug on it. Good old Boris. He's going to pull the plug on HS2. And I don't know, the terminus could be turned into ice rinks or something. That's what I was hoping would happen. But he didn't. And that's a great disappointment. And Boris generally has... His swamp draining activities haven't been half as successful as Trump's. And now, of course, the track has started to be laid. Work has started on laying the track. I was actually going to take you. I said I was going to take you to one of these locations actually today. My plan was to get on the train for Bicester and then get on a bus to a place called Calvert, which is where the track is due to go through. It's not far from Oxford, but you know, the travel restrictions are awful at the moment. You have to pre-book your train, and there weren't any tickets, so I didn't go. Of course, it's now going ahead, but it's not. Doesn't mean it's too late to stop it. It's never too late to stop it until the thing is built, and that work has only just begun. So, over the next few years, as I said, the evil caterpillar will move forward, and everything that's in front of that caterpillar can be saved until it's not. So, Boris, do something, mate. Come on, Boris, do your stuff. Go back to your old glories, your old glory days, which did exist, I remember. And there is some comfort. I mean, there's one bit of good news here. After the review, it was agreed that the Chiltern Tunnel would be created. Now, this was part of the original plan for HS2, which was abandoned, which was that some 10 miles of the track would run through a 10-mile tunnel under the Chiltern Hills. Because before then, they were talking about building a massive cutting. Now, if you'll know this, they've done this with the motorway. If you travel between Oxford and London on the coach or by rail or by car, and indeed I've made a video about this called Mutilating Mother Earth. I made a video about this where you can see it. It's one of the biggest landmark on the M40 between Oxford and London is the Stokenchurch Gap, which is a great big gash through the beautiful ancient Chiltern Hills. It's several hundred feet deep. Millions and millions of tons of rock were blasted away. The flesh of the earth blasted away so that this massive 6-lane highway could go through there. Now, there was talk about doing the same with HS2. Basically, the 10-mile Chiltern Tunnel replaces that. They were going to put a cutting through. They're replacing it with a bored tunnel, which is good. Big bored because it's deep. It's good. It's a bored tunnel, means it's going to go deep. It's not going to be just a cut and cover, where they basically do a cutting and then cover it over. It's going to be a deep bored tunnel, like a channel tunnel. So that's one bit of light in the darkness, I think. The Chiltern Tunnel is going to be there. The thing about it is, I mean, Boris is fighting. You see, Boris Johnson, as I said, the first Prime Minister in my lifetime I've ever felt any sense of respect for. Completely new feeling to look at my own Prime Minister and think, I respect you. He has, of course, been called Britain's Trump, and in many, I think that is justified. I still think that's justified. But of course, because he hasn't performed miracles, many people in the truth movement have given up on him, just like they gave up on Trump. A lot of them have given up on Trump as well. But the thing about it is, draining a swamp is not easy, especially when the swamp is particularly deep and rancid. And he's not a dictator. Boris is not a dictator. One of the advantages of democracy, or disadvantages in this case probably, is that one person can't have too much power. Boris is not a dictator. He has to tack against the breeze. I think he's doing what he can. I know that people like Caroline Stevens have basically said, oh, he was an insider from the start. It's all a big confidence trick, and you've fallen for it, Ben. No. He's, I don't know, maybe they threaten a new baby or something. He's on our side, which means he can claw back the ground he's lost. Now, Boris has done two very good things in the last week. In fact, I wrote 2 articles on Her Panama Voice about this. Firstly, he announced that a no-deal Brexit is still on the cards, and indeed he has said to Michel Barnier in Brussels while they're doing this negotiation, that we are there. The negotiations will be complete one way or another by the 31st of December. and our new relationship with the EU will be finalised. And he said quite clearly, if they won't accept a certain deal, such as the ability of the government to subsidise its own companies, which is what the big stickling point is at the moment, the British government can subsidise British businesses, then they're going to go to the World Trade Organisation. They're going to adopt the Bali package, and that is basically what the project theories call crashing out without a deal. But he's going to do that. Second thing he did, he has announced serious plans to defund the BBC. Finally, the TV licence is going to be abolished. Bloody 70 years too late, it's going to be bloody abolished. This ridiculous system where ever since it was adopted in 1946, this has been one of the major criticisms of the TV licence. You pay a subscription to certain TV companies. You want Netflix, things like that, you have to pay. You want Gaia TV, you've got to pay a monthly fee. Do you want the BBC? No. Well, you still got to pay. You still got to pay your subscription, whether you want it or not. Just owning an instrument that allows you to watch it, a television set. And you have to pay. Nah. Now, Bojo it's the first time a Prime Minister has taken major serious steps to abolishing that deceptive and despicable and parasitical practice. Well done, Boris. So if you can do that, let's make it a hat trick, Boris. Go in there, get your Union Jack, stand in front of the bulldozers and stop HS2. It's not too late. The track's only just started being laid. It's still just outside the terminus in London. The greenfield areas are not yet touched by this devastation. So come on, Boris, do your stuff. I know this is a sad video, but I hope I haven't left you without hope, because there is hope. As I say in my lecture, is there any hope? 2016 effect. And no doubt I'll be coming back to that subject in the next few weeks and months. But in the meantime, if you live in one of these areas affected by HS2, you have my deepest sympathies and my hope that that your worst fears will not come true. Because you people, as I said, it's a cultural attack as well. It's a cultural and psychological warfare attack on people to have these ancient parts of our traditions, both the natural world and the human world, destroyed by globalist expedience, which is all HS2 is. Globalist expedience is prioritised over ancient history and tradition. It says it all, doesn't it? It's just so obvious. It's just such a clear statement of intent. Don't let it happen, guys. Boris, stick by us, mate. Don't let us down. Thank you for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.